Coming up on the Make the Money and Run podcast with Vasu, Vaddiparty, Casey, Freelove. The NBA playoffs are almost set. They're set, but they're almost set. A couple more days of the NBA NHL playoffs got going. What a record-breaking day it was on Saturday and Sunday for the playoffs. By the way, there were 2 regular season games to end it. And did you see who signed with the Dodgers the other day? Boy, I must be getting famous because I'm getting a lot of flack from people I don't know just because he signed with my team. Albert Pujols signs with the Dodgers after being released by the Angels, and I'm getting a lot of flack because if they'd signed with their team, they'd be all giggles and grins and the other word that I can't use about it. But he's with the team, and we'll see when his pressure at bats. It's May 17th, 2021. Vasu and Casey here. Charlie off. He'll be back on Thursday and Friday with us as we go through another week. Casey, how are you, my man?
I'm doing well. Lots of news over the weekend, and I hope when we get into the baseball segment later, we can talk a little bit about the financials of Mr. Pujols heading to the Dodgers. But I kind of like the move, and I like the way the NBA played it yesterday. I mean, it was a lot of fun. We all had our eyeballs on the TV or on the app trying to figure out who's going to go where. And if I would have told you in the preseason that the LA Lakers were going to have to play their way into the NBA playoffs, you probably would have smacked me in the head and said, what are you talking about? This is the defending world champions here. But here we sit. It's going to be a really wild ride, I think, this year, Vasu, and I'm looking forward to it.
What a weekend we had in the NBA and the NHL. We'll get to all that and more. Make the Money and Run Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays. Right now, as you're seeing us, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific on Facebook and YouTube, very much live as we're here. If you miss any of it, especially our pick segment, download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Shout out to Vince Giacello and Glenn Morrell for their Sunday Spin Show, which I missed. I must have had alcohol on me or gotten some baseball in me because I missed their show yesterday, and I usually don't, and I was an invited guest on, so that's bad to be invited, so that's my apology to Vince and Glenn. But Vinny's new band, the Skinny Mulligans, which is a great name, perfect for him if anybody's seen him, and he does a lot of promotion for us as well. And then Joe Madden and Cammie Parsons do their Hustle and Grind daily live show. You can catch that on the Stables Media page and on their YouTube page as well. Of course, the main show, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific, for Hustle and Grind with the great Joe Madden, the great Cam Parsons, and the great Lisa Diaz. Handicapping 101 right there. And they're the ones to go to if you want to talk a lot of hockey because they're Canadian and they know how to do it and they're with it and everything is good with that. Thanks to Stables Media. We're powered by Stables Media as well. All right. So that's how you can get to us. That's a little promo for everything that we've got going on. Let's get to the NBA. What a day in the NBA the last few days. The Nets, we'll start with the East. Two of the playoff seeds, Casey, are set. The Milwaukee Bucks will play the Miami Heat as the 3-6, and then the New York Knicks. Speaking of, if you would have smacked me in the head, if you would have told me the New York Knicks not only would have made the playoffs, but also be the home court leader in that series against the Atlanta Hawks as the 4-5 in the East. Philadelphia and Brooklyn to be determined. We'll get to the play-in games in a second. But what a weekend it was. Brooklyn wins 2 games. Philadelphia, even not playing everybody, wins 2 games. Milwaukee loses the other night, but they were pretty much set in 3. Miami, kind of a disappointing loss to Milwaukee the other night. Actually, I had Milwaukee the other night, Casey, when they played Miami. They were only a 1.5-point favorite. I looked at the injury list. Everybody's playing, and they're only 1.5 at home. This is still the Milwaukee Bucks that score 130 points at home, and you're going to tell me Miami's going to beat them on the road? That I should have not taken any other game. That should have just thrown the money out on everything Milwaukee Bucks for that night, and it would have been a lot better night because then I only have to worry about one thing, Casey. And the New York Knicks, who slog on offense, are going to play a high-tempo Atlanta Hawks team, Trae Young and company, and Tom Thibodeau has not only resurrected the Knicks, Casey, but he's resurrected them into the spot of the playoffs where they're actually a legitimate chance to move on to the next round.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think they do have a legitimate chance. It's kind of a shame that Atlanta and New York have to play each other because whenever you get fresh blood, you'd like to see them against kind of the teams that have been there year in and year out. But it's been such a wild season that, I mean, we're in for a treat. I haven't been this excited about the NBA playoffs in a long time. Last year, I was excited for a different reason because it was kind of the first major sport to really return and get into playoff mode. And I thought it was awesome to have the bubble at Disney World, and I'm glad that they did it. But this year, I mean, literally, depending on what part of the country you're playing in, you could have 50% fan attendance. You could have more, perhaps. So home court advantage kind of comes back into the play for the first time in a long time. And over the weekend, basically the teams that needed to take care of business at the top did so. You mentioned the Sixers. They pick up the 1 seed. The Nets now the 2 seed. Jazz need to pick up some victories. That's exactly what they did. And the Phoenix Suns, my goodness, heading into this season, you and I have talked about them since last season in the bubble. but I didn't expect them to be the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. I thought they were going to make the playoffs, but the addition of Chris Paul has been just nothing short of fantastic. Now, as far as the opening round odds that are actually set, these are from DraftKings. You mentioned the series, the Heat and the Bucks. Milwaukee, a big minus 360 favorite, which seems a little high just considering the fact that Miami took them out last year in the Eastern semis, and they know how to play tough, and they are still the defending conference champions. So minus 360 for the Bucks. If you want to jump on the Heat, you'll get back plus 270. The Atlanta Hawks and New York Knicks, minus $1.12 either side. It's a pick 'em, pal, basically. I like that. The Denver Nuggets, a slight favorite against the Portland Trailblazers out west, minus $1.20 if you want to bet on the Nuggets, and minus 105 if you think Damian Lillard and company can get it done. Then lastly, the LA Clippers, a pretty big favorite against the Dallas Mavericks, same odds as the Bucks and Heat. LA minus 360 and Dallas plus 270. And I know we'll dissect that as we move through the show, but I guess, do you have an early feel for any of those 4 series in particular? Is there a team that's playing so red hot that you think that they're going to get it done? I think Denver, if completely healthy, would have been a bigger favorite against Portland, but you do have the potential every night that Lillard could go off for like 50 plus points and just basically win games for them. So I think that we're probably going to have more drawn out series here early on than we would in playoffs past, meaning we'll push to 6 or 7 games in most of them, I think.
All depends on who comes out of the play-in tournament in terms of playing the 1s and 2 seeds, because some of these teams do have problems against these lower seeds. All right, let's start with the East. The play-in games on Tuesday, 6:40 Eastern. The Charlotte Hornets will take on the Indiana Pacers. Indiana, 3-point favorite. Anybody seen Indiana play the last few weeks? It's pretty surprising they're a 3-point favorite. But they are a 3-point favorite, Casey, because the Charlotte Hornets blew 2 games and put themselves from 6th, where they were playing well, sometime in February when I was in Tahoe or Reno. I forgot when I was up there, when they were playing really well and they were 6th in the conference. And now they fall all the way to 10th. They had a lead on the Knicks on Saturday, blew that one in overtime. I had the Knicks minus 4.5, so the overtime helped me. And then yesterday they did cover the 6 points against Washington, but they also had a 15-point lead against the Wizards in that game as well, too. And then Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal got going, the rest of the team, and they're as hot as anybody right now. So Indiana and Charlotte are playing in the 9-10 game, and for those that don't remember when we explained, the loser of the 9-10 game is out. The winner will play the loser of the 7-8 seed, and then the winner of that game will move on to play whatever seed they're in, or 1 or 2 seed, depending on who it is. But it's going to be an interesting, and whoever wins the 7-8 game will be the automatic 7 seed. So that one's all set for the Brooklyn Nets as far as the East goes. Casey, early takes on Indiana, Charlotte, and we'll get to Boston and Washington in a second. But what a weekend of NBA to end up, like you said. But the Wizards, come on now. The Boston Celtics, they didn't play anybody, and they still covered 12.5 yesterday against the Knicks. But come on now. The Washington Wizards, the laughing stock of the Eastern Conference and the NBA, all the infighting, Russell Westbrook, bad trade from Houston. Bradley Beal was going to get traded at the All-Star break or wherever he was going to go to. And now look at where they are. Not only are they not in the 9-10 game, which we said is a single elimination game, they're in the 7-8 game. So those 2 teams have 2 chances to move on to the next round, Casey.
Yeah, the Wizards are a tale of 2 halves of the season. I mean, BR and PR, before Russell and post Russell, because he has done an amazing job. I mean, the guy's a triple-double machine. He's done it game in and game out. Interestingly, though, the Wizards are just 16-26 against the Eastern Conference. Now, I know a lot of that happened before Russ got there, but I feel like they are the team that has surged up there a little bit, and he's been kind of the engine that made that happen. The one thing you got to look out for, though, when you're betting this game, Vegas is playing tricks with us, and I do have a play on this game since we're not going to be on tomorrow. We'll get to the picks later, but the Wizards are allowing 118.5 points per game. That's the most in the NBA, and allowing their opponents to shoot 47.1%. So I think the key is going to be, can they play a little bit of lockdown defense in stretches? And I think they certainly can. Boston 20-22 against the Eastern Conference. So neither of these are overwhelming. That's why it's the 9-10 game. As far as down the stretch, Celtics 4-6, Wizards 6-4. And, their opponents have scored quite a bit as well, Vasu. So I'm looking at the total. By the way, in this particular contest, you've got the Celtics. It opened as 3. They're now 2.5-point favorites. The total in this one opened at 234.5. That's been bet down to 232.5. Do you think that these teams will kind of stick with their styles in this particular matchup and try and run up and down the court? Or does the defense that we've been talking about that's coming kind of start now?
Casey, why would you change if you're the Washington Wizards? You went from 12th, and all of a sudden your offense is rolling. You're getting some key stops here and there. Who's going to play defense in the NBA, not only in the play-in tournament, but also in the playoffs, because you're going to have to go possession by possession. I think the Warriors, we'll get to the West in a second, but I think the Warriors showed that yesterday against Memphis being down. Of course, you got number 30 on the floor there. But Indiana, they didn't have Sabonis. They didn't have Warren all year. They didn't have Brogdon for a few games last week, and they kind of plummeted from where they were early in the year to the 9th seed. Charlotte Hornets, like I said, they lost 2 games over the weekend that they probably should have won and probably put themselves in a better position. Boston Celtics have had COVID issues. There have been stretches where they didn't play well. Last week was the last weekend that they had the Miami series where they lost on Sunday and then came back and lost again in Boston Garden. I mean, the last time a Celtics team has lost 2 in a row at home to a team that pretty much evenly matched with them was, I can't even tell you the date that was, because Boston Garden, or TD Garden, now has such a mystique about it. And 1.5 point favorite, it has come down. According to my site, it's 1.5, 232.5. That's the second game tomorrow night. Then Indiana 3. I got to think the Indiana line, I don't know what the opening line was for Indiana, but I got to think it's been bet up a little bit, even with the Indiana injuries, based on recency bias of what the Charlotte Hornets did over the weekend, blowing 2 double-digit leads. And now they're in the fight of their lives from an elimination standpoint. And of course, Boston and Washington have 2 chances to go in. So just forget the lines and forget the totals and forget that it's tomorrow real quick. I mean, what are you looking at in terms of how these styles kind of match up with each other and what's going on in terms of who do you think might go forward from there? And these aren't official picks. This is just an assessment right now.
Yeah, well, what I'm worried about if I'm a Pacers fan is I'm looking at the injury list. The Hornets, basically, we know Hayward's out because he's got the foot. But for the Pacers, there's a lot of questionable things. Karis LeVert, who actually missed a game, I believe, on Friday with migraines, is still listed as day-to-day. I'm sure he's going to get in there and play. But Edmund Sumner, day-to-day with the knee. TJ Warren, of course, is out for the year. Miles Turner's got a toe injury. Jeremy Lamb is day-to-day. Malcolm Brogdon is day-to-day, as is Aaron Holiday. So this is just kind of a very bad time to be playing in a single elimination game if you are the Pacers. They're 3-point favorites because they're at home. Charlotte's not great on the road, 15-21 away from North Carolina. And I guess the kind of the key is going to be how Rozier and Ball play, and can they distribute and look a little bit more like they did a few months ago? Because I think during a stretch of this year, they were a very good team against the spread. They were surprising people by picking up victories. Now, you talked about the Pacers. One thing that I really like from them, they like to distribute the ball. In fact, they're second in the NBA, 24.7 assists per game, and that's led by Domantas Sabonis, who gives you kind of a different wrinkle because he's a bigger body, but he's actually averaging 6.7 assists per. I think because they are in Indianapolis, playing in front of, I believe, limited fans will be allowed there. I think it is advantage Pacers just because the Hornets have been so terrible as of late. 3-7 down the stretch, averaging well below their season total. They're only averaging 107 points per game in the last 10. Meanwhile, the Pacers don't blow your doors off either, but they're 5-5 down the stretch, but 123.8 points. And I talked about the assists. They've been averaging nearly 32 assists per game. So if you can distribute the ball, you're going to score on your home rim. And I think I'm leaning towards the Pacers just from a, pure pick the game standpoint. I think Indiana's probably the team here.
I think officially we'll have posts up tomorrow, so our picks for the NBA, but we'll give you an assessment at the end in our pick segment because that's what you're here for. I actually kind of leaning towards Charlotte in this regard because shame on me for not observing. What I like about our show is that, and I tell people all the time that want to get into our business, I go 2 ears and one mouth, observe and listen, and that's how you get your assessments out. And you're able to do this. It was my bad for not mentioning that LaMelo Ball is also back for Charlotte, which I thought he was gone for the end of the year, and I'm sure he had a lot to do with them and their leads going into the game. But they don't play defense, and these totals for Charlotte and Indiana have been religiously in the 230s, and Indiana's been in the 240s as far as over and unders. So 228 seems very interesting to me in terms of an over because both teams can shoot. And if they get hot, I think Indiana had a 140, 125 game against Washington last week, so I think 228 might be a low total for Charlotte and Indiana. In terms of Boston now, Tatum's got to get hot. I know he's had COVID issues, and we've all had the issues with that. And it's only a basketball game, I get it, but boy, if they need to advance, Washington's red hot right now. And Beal's scoring. I mean, he finished second in the NBA in scoring, but Russell Westbrook has turned it around from whatever skirmishes they had internally, and he's got Scott Brooks there behind him. His triple-double stats are out of the world, and it's just a matter of It's just a matter of having to deal with Washington's offense because they don't stop anybody, and Boston hasn't played great defense in the last week. So it'll be interesting. And I think I don't have the announcer schedule. We'll get to that in a little bit. Let's move on to the West now. Go ahead, Casey. One more thing.
Oh, no, I just wanted to mention again where you want to keep an eye on injury reports. I mean, especially if you get on Twitter, you can find all kinds of different sites that'll give you up-to-the-minute injuries because Marcus Smart's day-to-day for Boston. He's got a calf thing going on. Evan Fournier is day-to-day with a knee. Tristan Thompson day-to-day with a pectoral. And then, of course, you know that you mentioned Jason Tatum there. So you want to make sure if you're going to be actually putting your cash down on this, that you know exactly who's going to be out running the court. Because if I tell you the Celtics aren't going to have those guys, that probably makes you say, well, the way the Wizards are playing, they're probably going to be able to score quite a bit. I have a feeling, and we'll talk more about this later in the program, that this is going to be a little lower scoring than these teams have been accustomed to playing down the stretch. But we'll just have to wait and see. And obviously the main event we're about to talk about anyway, that is the Western Conference with the greatest play-in game you could ever ask for, and we'll talk about that.
Denver, Portland will head up. And by the way, check our social media pages because we'll have all the updates. Some of the other sites are pretty good as well, too. But we're doing our best to keep going on daily stuff as far as picks and things like that since we're on 3 times a week. Check out Facebook and Instagram and everywhere else that you can make the money and run. All right, moving on to the West, the Denver Nuggets. You talked about, boy, those injuries. But, boy, they played really well, even with those injuries, to finish in the 3rd spot. Everybody thought it was going to be LA v. LA. As far as 1 and 2, we know where the Lakers are. They're in the play-in game on Wednesday. Clippers finished at 4. They sat everybody against Houston, and sure enough, you don't respect the NBA. These are professional players. They will come back and bite you because the Houston Rockets got the Clippers, and I thought that was going to end up hurting them, and it did because they ended up in the 4th seed. I don't think Dallas was anywhere in a position 5 to catch them, but the Clippers clearly could have had an opportunity to be in the 3 seed and play Portland, which would have been a really good series. I just got a feeling Portland with Lillard and McCollum back. Nurkic is playing great in the center after his hand injury. He's back as well, too. They're the 6th seed. They've got Denver. The Clippers and Dallas, 4 and 5 in that series, with the Clippers having the home court, and that'll start this weekend. And Utah and Phoenix to be determined because as we get to the West play-in games, we've got the Memphis Grizzlies and the San Antonio Spurs and the Los Angeles Lakers and the Golden State Warriors. And everybody thought that had a chance to be conference final material, but here they are based on circumstances having to be in the play-in game where it's a one and done. So you have to treat these play-in games like it's a game 7. And I've heard everybody say that. These are game 7. There's no feeling out process. There's no matter of fact that we'll get them back in the 2nd quarter or the 4th quarter because there won't be another 1st quarter, 2nd quarter, 3rd quarter, 4th quarter if you lose this game out. Memphis, 4-point favorite over San Antonio, 222. Can't figure out San Antonio. I know they didn't play a lot of people. They took Phoenix to the wire yesterday, losing by 2 points. They did cover the 9.5. That game at 7:40 Eastern tomorrow night, 4:40 out here on the West Coast. And then the game of the play-in tournament that everybody's looking forward to. It's number 30, number 23, Steph Curry for your Warriors, LeBron James for the Lakers. And he looked good over the weekend against Indianapolis and against they played yesterday. They played Charlotte yesterday. I forgot who they played yesterday, but they won both games. They couldn't get past Portland because Portland got a big win over Denver last night. They beat them by 30. Denver didn't play anybody, but they were all set in the 3 seed anyway. 4.5 points of the Lakers, 219.5 is the over-under against the Warriors. Memphis 4. As I said, San Antonio, the visiting team, 222. I was a little disappointed in Memphis. I thought they had the chance to take the Warriors down yesterday because they're bigger, they could rebound. But you get up against Curry, and Dylan Brooks was great for the first 10 minutes. But you could tell that Curry, I mean, you just had an idea. If you watch Warriors basketball where we live, you know Curry's going to run around for how many miles that they track him on. And you just can't keep up with him. He's going to find a way to get open. And he had 9 points in the first quarter, which is pretty good, but it's not Curry-like. But he ended up with 46 points on 36 shots. 22 of those shots attempted were 3-pointers. It wasn't a great percentage. 13 of 36 and 9 of 22, I think, was the final total on the 3-point shot. So let's start with Memphis, San Antonio, because we know that's the appetizer to what's going to be 10 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday night for people staying up late on the East Coast. We'll be into it because it'll be right during our dinner time, Casey.
Yes, we will. Well, let's take a look at kind of how it's gone. The last time these two got together, they didn't play very much here in 2021. I mean, they played 4 games total, but some of those were last year. They played 3 games total. Memphis blew out the Spurs 133-102 the last time these two met. Memphis beat the Spurs 129-112. in the previous matchup, which took place in late January. In fact, those were back-to-back games as the NBA schedule is set up. Then in December, the Spurs with a 131-119 victory over the Grizz. I mean, this is a very interesting matchup. I'm not sure exactly, which team to pick in this one, to be honest with you. Look, the Spurs have a winning record away from home, despite the fact they're 33-39, Vasu. They're 19-17 away from Texas. The Grizzlies are just 18-18 at home. And you got to wonder, if it comes down to coaching, well, we're going to favor the Spurs. But it feels like the Grizzlies are a team that have hovered in this lower, 7, 8, 9, trying to get into the playoffs, trying to get back to where they were in the glory years a few years ago. I think this is going to be a defensive-minded matchup. And I think that the Spurs really probably could come out here and pick up this victory and eliminate them. I'm not saying I'm going with them, but 3.5 at home seems a little high. The 222 is a good number because Popovich, if he knows anything about playoff basketball, which I think he knows a little, considering all those rings that adorn his fingers, he's going to tell this team, look, we've got to stress defense. We don't even mind if we win this game something like 95-90. Basically, you have to go counterintuitive to the 3 scores I just read you, because those were all very high-scoring games, right around 240, 250 each time they met. Can they kind of turn on the switch and play a little better defense in stretches? Now, as far as the Grizzlies, I have not watched a ton of Memphis basketball. They're not on every night. I mean, I've seen them on the app a little bit. But they got Ja Morant. They can distribute the ball, and they are a team that probably didn't play as well as they wanted to down the stretch. Nobody wants to be in this 9-10 game, Vasu. It's a tough place to be, knowing that it is a game 7 and your season ends if you lose one. But I guess if you kind of flip the script on that, you're probably saying, well, hey, at least we have a chance, and anything can happen, I suppose, once you actually get going.
So you're saying there's a chance, huh? That's the way as the old line goes. Memphis -4, 222. What I like about Memphis, what they did early in the game yesterday is Valanciunas got on the board. If you haven't seen a lot of Jonas Valanciunas, he's a very skilled big man who's got a pretty good touch inside 12 feet. And then Dylan Brooks is a very good defender. I watched all of his games at Oregon. And then, of course, John Morant's there. But the guy that was missing early in the year that came on later, and they're back. And they got to figure out Taylor's the coach's name. I forgot the coach's Taylor Jenkins at Memphis, a former assistant coach under Budenholzer at Milwaukee and Atlanta. But Jaren Jackson Jr. is back, and he's a very skilled big man. He can shoot the threes. You don't want him shooting the threes all the time, but he's a very skilled big man. And what Memphis does is they rebound the ball really well, and they were dominating the boards early in the game yesterday against Golden State, but then they just tired down. And the $1 million question, Casey, as we said, and like I said, we are observers of everything that goes on, and that's why we do the show, is because we are watching and waiting and hoping that somebody will dig their heels in, even if it's Duke Wojciechowski style, pounding the floor. Let's see some defense somewhere in any of these games. I mean, come on, really. Now we're in the play-in tournament. By the way, before we get to the Lakers-Warriors game, by the way, this play-in tournament doesn't count to the regular season, unlike baseball's 163rd game. Doesn't count to your playoff statistics either. This is just a what do they call it? A one-off type of thing where it's just a play-in game, and they're going to keep stats on it, but it's just a play-in stat. So it's not really a playoff game, but it's not really a regular season game. It's just exactly what it is, a play-in game.
Do you think that this format has some staying power, though? If it's successful and they get a lot of eyeballs on it, do you think this is something that we might see become more normalized, or is it just a one-off because of COVID and the shortened schedule and all this stuff that's gone on, chaos?
I like the format from the sense of it brings excitement, which you want to do to your fan base. But there's too many teams in the playoffs. That's a conversation.
Teams, man.
20, 2/3 of the league. It's not really a playoff game though, so we can't say that. But 2/3 of the teams, and even half the team, more than half on a regular basis, 16 of 30, 31 in the NHL, 16 of 30 in the NBA, 32 when the Kraken come in the next year. But still, that's a lot of teams in the playoffs, and boy, they're talking about how devalued the regular season is, and it seems like it is devalued now because LeBron James and Anthony Davis didn't play a lot of the regular season, and they were injured, and this load management crap is all there, and I can understand why they do it. But this year, I can understand why you did it because everything was so compacted, just like baseball was last year. But there's too many teams. If the format works, yes, but figure out the format with less playoff teams going into the series. And I'm not the only one that says that. NBA guys I've talked to, NBA announcers I've talked to, say the exact same thing. So, all right, the Lakers and the Warriors, the marquee matchup of these 4 games in the West, obviously the one in the West, and then Washington, Boston in the East. 4.5-point favorite. I think that's a good number. 4.5. The LeBron James will probably guard Curry. They'll have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope probably guard him a little bit as well too. But what are the Warriors going to do with Anthony Davis in the middle? And by the way, Marcus Hull's there off the bench too. Very skilled big man, former Memphis Grizzly, former Toronto Raptor who won a championship. And don't forget the midseason free agent salary cap exception that they got in Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond, all he does is get offensive rebounds and pound you on the head with dunks. And it's a little bit more than that. His free throw shooting's a lot better. But he really brought a toughness to that team when they came in. And he's very skilled on the inside at about 10 feet with the left-handed hook and the right-handed hook. His free throws are a lot better, but he jumps the boards and he crashes the boards. And if you watch him in Cleveland, if you watch him in Detroit, he gets 4 or 5 offensive rebounds a game. And that may not sound like a lot right now just overall, but that's a lot of offensive rebounds that you're battling with against 9 other guys in the on the court, Casey.
Exactly. And you pointed it out. I mean, there's a reason, guys, that basically the Lakers are still the second choice on the board to win the whole thing and an overwhelming favorite to win the Western Conference, Vasu. You're only getting 2-1 on your money if you bet on the Lakers. Now it's down a little bit because at one point they were just about even, but Las Vegas knows that this wasn't the Laker team the team you saw is not the same team you're going to see. If LeBron James is having any ankle issues, I have no doubt that they will figure out some sort of painkiller to get him out on the court. And if you look at how these games have gone, the last time these two got together was in March. The Lakers just blew the doors off the Warriors, 128-97. Prior match.
Oops, I don't hear you, Casey.
My phone rang.
Oh, there you go. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Prior matchup to that, 117-91 was the score between the Lakers and the Warriors. So the Lakers have had their way with them the last 2 times they met, and that probably is because of what you were just speaking about, which is the rebounding advantage that Los Angeles enjoys. One thing I really like about it, though, both teams have won their last 5 games coming in. So, I mean, you want teams that are starting to peak a little bit. You've got it here. The whole key we know is going to be, can Steph Curry be the Steph Curry that he was all year? I mean, LeBron's even saying he should be the MVP. This guy has been all world. He won the scoring title yesterday, joining Jordan as the guys over 33 to win the scoring title, which is just amazing. And he's literally carried this team into the playoffs on his back. I have a feeling that the reason this number has gone down is that everybody's kind of seeing him on SportsCenter, and all the talking heads are talking about Steph Curry and how great he is. Problem is, this is a 5-on-5 game, and the Lakers have superior talent, if healthy. For sure, they've got the better team.
By the way, LeBron James, no dummy. He's been in this league for a long time. He's not going to say that Steph Curry is not the MVP before you go into a game against Curry when he drops 55 on your head and eliminates you out of the 7th seed. So let's give LeBron James a little credit here. He knows what he's doing as far as like he's Bill Belichick on to Cincinnati, that type of thing. He's propping up every team. He's propping up every team ahead of time that they're going to have to play.
By the way, I think that I think both these teams are going to advance anyway. I think the loser of this game will beat the winner of the Spurs and Grizzlies game and find their way in. And what an awesome first round to potentially have. Let's say, for example, the Lakers win. If we have Warriors Jazz, that sounds like a lot of fun. And Lakers Sun sounds like a whole lot of fun. So I think it sets up real nicely. And I think both these teams will eventually qualify and get in.
Well, as long as we have it, we might as well enjoy it. Who can play defense? We'll figure that out over the week, over these next 3 days. It's my birthday week, so coming in 53. When we get to the pick segment, I'm planning on going 53-0, but I'm not greedy. I'll go 50-3 for the week and figure the number of games. Wait till you see the picks and how many games I have today, so you'll know I'm going to get close to 53 by the time our Friday show ends on Friday. Hey, one other NBA note. I just came across the wire. The great Marv Albert's going to retire after this playoff run. I didn't realize he was 80. I knew he was up there, but I didn't realize he was 80 years old. His son works at Fox, and now he's the lead announcer for NBC on the hockey. Great job, great family, 2 broadcasting brothers in the business as well. But obviously, in our lifetimes, Marv Albert is the voice of basketball, not only nationally and in the tri-state area. He clearly is the voice of the New York Knicks basketball. I know he and Mark Jackson did the Nets games for a few years during the time that he had a little problem and MSG fired him and all this other stuff, which we're not going to get into because we're not that type of show. But the fact is that he has had a great career. 1963 he started, Casey. 1965 he became the Rangers announcer, hockey Rangers announcer, and then in 1967 he became the New York Knicks announcer. And he's done boxing. He did baseball for NBC. He did all of Ali's fights with Dr. Freddie Pacheco, Ali's trainer, and he's had quite a storied career. He did the NFL on NBC for a long time. He did the NFL on CBS for a long time, and he even called college basketball later in his career with CBS as well. But what a career, what a guy. I mean, if we could just have a pinky from him of the career that Marv Albert had, we would love to have. We'd love to have enjoyed that, and he's one of the best to listen to. And I can still hear him. I can still hear him calling the Jordan shot when I was in college. And yes, Michael Jordan is on fire. That type of thing. I used to do a pretty good Marv Albert impression, but I'll just leave it at that. But your thoughts on Marv Albert before we go to break here?
Well, he made one of the shortest words in the English language, forever his stamp. And, nobody says yes quite like Marv Albert. And for those of you that are under 40 and listening, look, when we were young men growing up, I mean, as Vasu's talking about him, I've got the NBA on NBC music running through my head. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, that's Marv Albert's night. That's his time to shine. He called all those Bulls championship games, even Pistons, the Lakers. I mean, this is the guy that was the voice for the national broadcast. He is, probably right there on the Mount Rushmore as far as the ability to do your job well. He's like a Vin Scully, except on a national scale. Vin is beloved nationally, but of course, LA is where he's a deity, whereas everybody in the world knows Marv Albert's voice. I mean, as soon as he opens his mouth, you know exactly who's talking, and you're probably paying a little bit closer attention. So I have a lot of respect for what he did on the court. As you said, we don't need to talk about off the court stuff. There's a reason he got rehired, because he's good at what he does.
Yeah.
And again, time flies, man. I didn't realize he was 80 years old. And of course, we'll wish him well in retirement. He said he wants to spend more time with his family and be able to kind of enjoy, the remainder of his life. And he's certainly got a gold wrapped resume and probably a bust in the Hall of Fame, I'm sure, at some point as a broadcaster.
Favorite Marv Albert call off the top of your head?
It's probably got to be Reggie Miller when he did the Knicks dirty with those 9 points in the last 30 seconds. That would probably be the marquee one. And then as the NBC directors did such a masterful job of showing Spike Lee all pissed off on the sidelines while Marv's calling Reggie's threes, that would probably be the top for me.
I think, and being a Lakers fan, I had Chick Hearn all those years growing up in Los Angeles, but Chick didn't do a lot of national stuff in those days, or probably a long time. Marv Albert, for me, I remember his baseball pregame shows. I remember the boxing stuff, and I remember, obviously, the NFL stuff. He did very well, but basketball is his sport. To me, the Marv Albert, Michael Jordan going off against Portland. Michael Jordan has it stuck in automatic. Type of calls. And yes, and count it. Yes, and counted. Michael Jordan with the three-point play opportunity. Yeah, no, Marv Albert, one of the greats. We all get older. Time passes us by. We get it. So we always say for a wagering show, time will always cover the point spread, and we will all be losers to time in trying to cover the point spread. There's no doubt about that. All right, a lot of NBA to get to. We'll get to more of it as the play-in games go on Thursday and Friday when we come back. But we're going to move on to baseball. We'll take a break. Make the Money and Run podcast. Thanks to everybody on Facebook and YouTube. If you missed any of it, you can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeart, and Google Podcasts as well too. We are all over the place, Casey. Back in 30 seconds with Major League Baseball, and I'll tell all you people why Albert Pujols is going to be a great signing for the Dodgers. We'll see you in 30 seconds. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast, May 17th, 2021. Yeah, you get older and you don't really care about birthdays, but I like my birthday still. So this week I'll be number 53, God willing. I'll get to Friday and we'll have a good show and I'll have a winning week. And it's Dodgers Giants this weekend too, which I'm lucky enough to work one of those games. And then Friday night will be, in advance of my producers. I'm not sure how I'll be on Saturday when I see you, but I'll be good to go. I mean, hey, we're going to be honest here. Let's do it. And then Sunday afternoon, Giants Dodgers close out. No Kershaw and Bauer this weekend. No Gosman, and I think Alex Wood. I have to look at the Red Series that the Giants are going into. We'll get to the Giants in a second. Thanks to Jennifer on Facebook for watching with us, and thanks to everybody on Facebook and YouTube. Of course, you can download and subscribe if you miss any of the live broadcasts, especially our pick segment. Since I'm going to go hot this week, Casey, don't miss the pick segment. Download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. You can get us Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific. So there's this guy named Albert Pujols. He's drawn a lot of interest, both negatively and positively. In fact, one guy even said, his last few years have been down ever since he stopped taking his vacations to Mexico, which I thought was totally outrageous because he's a Hall of Fame player. He gets released by the Angels. He's 41 years old. He hasn't had great 3 years. We knew at that time 10 years was a long contract that he signed with the Angels. So the Angels released him 2 weeks ago. They're not playing for anything. They haven't made the playoffs. Mike Trout's been only in the playoffs one time in his 9-year career, or 10-year career now with the Anaheim Angels, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, the California Angels, Disneyland Angels, etc., whatever they are. But the fact is, he signed with the Dodgers for the league minimum, prorated minimum even, $420,000. The Dodgers are going to pay Albert Pujols, and the Angels will be responsible for the rest of that salary. Albert Pujols is a Hall of Fame player, and if he doesn't give it to you in the production, which I think he will because he's going to be spot duty at first base, a lot of pinch hitting opportunities, maybe some double switching. When you get into a pressure situation, if you've watched him in the playoffs over the years, I think Albert Pujols will step up. Will he be successful? Will it be Albert Pujols? Well, no. None of us are how we were when we were young. There's no doubt about it. But to have a veteran guy on your team that is challenging, Casey, I think he's going to be motivated. I think the Dodgers will be motivated. I think the fact that he's got a chance to win, I think with the injuries that they've had, and I watch the team. I'm a fan of the team. I get it. But even from the standpoint of everybody knocking him for going to the Dodgers, I think they're knocking him because the Dodgers signed him and their team didn't sign him, obviously, because I'm getting a lot of Giants fan notes. I'm getting a lot of other team notes. I mean, can you imagine if he went to Milwaukee and they had to play St. Louis 9 times more this year and watching him go in? But he's got a home in Anaheim. He signs with the Dodgers. Bellinger's coming back on rehab next week, from rehab next week. So they're going to be stacked again, and you add a guy like this off the bench. What do you think, Casey? I just think it's a good signing. And what's the risk? What's the risk for a future Hall of Famer for $420,000? Who cares if it flops?
I had to look all that up last night because I'm like, wait, how much are they on the hook for? But then I remembered the Angels just released him, so they're on the hook for all kinds of cash. I mean, don't forget, this is the last year of his deal, and he was getting $30 million.
Everything but $420,000.
Yeah. So for $400,000, yes, I would like to have Albert Pujols as an option, even if he's only going to play very sparingly, even in mop-up duty and in utility hitter kind of positioning. But I think that he's got to be thrilled. I think, obviously, I can tell from your enthusiasm, you're thrilled, and Dodger Nation should be thrilled. Why not? I mean, at the very least, the motivation of chasing one more ring. I mean, he's already been a world champion, but now he has a chance to go out on top, and he's with a team that on paper and according to everything we've talked about leading up to this season should have been or is still a prohibited favorite to win the National League, and the odds bear that out. So I think Dave Roberts is smart enough to understand where to use them in spots. If anything, that although they're the world champions, it doesn't mean they can't garner wisdom from a guy who's been doing it at a high level for so long. I mean, I think just that having that mind in there and kind of that enthusiasm and a guy that'll go out there and he's grinded for his whole career. He's set all kinds of records. And the other cool thing is if you need a late hit and you need a little pop, this guy can still hit home runs as long as he stays healthy. And the cool thing is, Vasu, because he won't be playing every day, you can literally just kind of, get him in a cryogenic chamber, get everything working, have a foot doctor rubbing those feet right before you go out on the field. And he could certainly if Kirk Gibson could step up and hit a home run, Albert Pujols could step up and hit a home run.
There's no doubt about it. I think it's a great sign. I think all the people that I live in the Bay Area, I think all the people I've heard from and have been tweeted at, I think they're just upset that he thinks the Dodgers are getting rich, the rich are getting richer, which is true in one sense, but they're not paying him all that much. It's a no risk. Any team could have gone after him and gotten him. I think the White Sox could have gotten him. I think the Cardinals could have gone after him. I think the Mets probably could use anything in their offense right now to help them as well too. Even Tampa Bay would have been a good place for him. And with the foot problems, maybe an American League team would have been better, but that's going to be there. He's going to play maybe once a week, twice a week at first. But, with all due respect to the Dodgers, and I love the Dodgers, and I like all the guys on the team contributed last year, but in the ninth inning with 2 on and the winning run at second base, you want Chris Taylor up there batting or you want Albert Pujols batting with the experience and the knowledge he's had? Chris Taylor, please continue to hit. I'm not knocking you here. It's Albert Pujols, it's the Hall of Famer that I'm talking about here, who everybody is very happy about. All right, so we'll see. And by the way, for everybody, it's May 17th. Calm down. Except for my profit and loss balance on these wagers, I'm not really worried about standings or what's going on. Let him have a week of at bats first before you get on him. You know, Jake McGee's struggled a couple times. Giants fans, let him have until the All-Star break before you start wondering why. Because you should all be thrilled right now that you're in first place with the best record in the National League when everybody was bitching and moaning about what kind of roster Farhad Zaidi was putting in there. So that goes for the A's, and that goes for the Boston Red Sox, and that goes for any team that wants to criticize on April. Say, you know what? I don't want to do this now because it's going to take time. But I'll tell you a funny story. 9 years ago, Clayton Kershaw was opening up against Bumgarner, and he hit a home run. It may not have been Bumgarner, but he hit a home run, a 1-0 game on opening day. And KMBR, the affiliate for the Giants out here in the Bay Area, they took their post-game callers when they still had callers on the show. And they should have brought a left-hander in to face Kershaw. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is game one. He's the pitcher. I'm going like, I never forgot that. These are stories that you never forget when you hear stuff like that. Bring the left-hander in to face Kershaw on opening day and blow your bullpen out by May 15th. That's
you cannot have pitching strategy that involves worrying when a pitcher's at the plate. Get out of here. That's an uninformed caller.
Anyway, Albert Pujols, I hope you have a great year. And if it doesn't work, your experience will be valuable for the Bellingers and the Gavin Luxes and even Justin Turner to some degree. And Mookie Betts is there already, and the pitching staff is doing great. Fix your bullpen, though. I'll tell you that right now. Fix your bullpen. Get Trinan in there as a closer. Get David Price in there as a closer. We'll worry about that as time goes on. Right now, I'm still not feeling too bad about them in the National League West.
And also, you mentioned Giants fans. Well, if you want to see them, you're going to see a ton of them because they're playing 7 times before the end of this month.
Yep.
So they've got, after the series against Arizona, the Dodgers will head to San Francisco over the weekend for a 3-game set, and then they conclude the month of May with a 4-game set at Chavez Ravine. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, and I know the Giants fans are looking forward to it as well.
Dodgers fans are looking forward to it as well, too, myself included. So forward promotion, Saturday game, one of the regional games on Fox. The following Saturday in Los Angeles, also on Fox, we start the Baseball Night in America package from Memorial Day weekend to the All-Star break. So 6 games every Saturday on Fox. Check your local listings on that as well, too, as I promote the other company. Thanks to Robbie and Jennifer on Facebook. Let's move on to the American League East. Let's move on to the other notes that we have here. Boston, Toronto, New York, and Tampa all got off to bad starts. Actually, Boston got off to a better start than everybody thought. The Yankees, they're finally picking up. Their defense is a lot better. They're after Kluber and Kluber's okay. After Garrett Cole, starting pitching's a little shaky. The middle relief's kind of shaky, but they're starting to hit the ball. And all of a sudden, the Tampa Bay Rays have 23 wins. All 4 of those teams have 23-plus wins in the division. I didn't even mention Toronto. Is there anybody white hot, red hot, white hot, whatever hot color you want, more than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. right now? He is just scalding the ball. He's lost 40 pounds in the winter. He's not swinging like pitches like he did last year.
Like his dad did?
But his dad was swinging pitches out of the zone above his head, but he's a Hall of Famer, so who's to knock it? But Vladimir Guerrero, Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, the Toronto Blue Jays are on fire right now. They're in Dunedin still. On June 1st, they'll go up to Buffalo, where that offensive ballpark proved to be an overs better haven last year, and I think it's not going to change, especially if the offense continues like that. I didn't see the standings, but they're 2 games back, I think, of the Red Sox right now, who had just swept last week or lost 2 out of 3 to the A's and then beat the Angels 2 out of 3. I had the Red Sox yesterday, even though his profit-loss balance wasn't very good for me yesterday. Ohtani hitting the home run in the 9th inning off Jacob Barnes did not help that situation with the Red Sox losing that. But they're still the team right now to beat until you can get to them. Pitching in that American League East, Casey, is going to be pretty tough to figure out right now because I don't know who has the best pitching right now to stop the other 3 teams in the division. Even Baltimore's pretty good with John Means.
Well, and the nice thing about Toronto, who you were talking about, is we'll get a better feel for how they do in division because they're about to go all division. They've got a 3-game set starting tomorrow at home against Boston. Then they stay at home for 4 against Tampa Bay before traveling to New York. So we will get kind of a little bit of a early / approaching the quarter mark of the season feel for where they're at. And I think you mentioned it. I mean, it all is going to come down to pitching. We know all these teams have the potential to rake. This division is insane. It's the only division in baseball where 4 out of the 5 teams have a positive run differential, including the Red Sox, who are at plus 45. The Blue Jays, as you mentioned, scoring a lot of runs lately. They're up at plus 36. The Yankees are at plus 11, and I have a feeling by the time all the dust settles, that's going to be a much higher number as well. And then Tampa Bay, they just do what Tampa Bay does. Nobody talks about them. Nobody pays attention to them. And they win a bunch of games. I wouldn't be surprised if they start finding their way up the chart. But I thought that was pretty interesting. And as you talk about the way that they're playing currently, 3 of the 4 teams are 6-4 in their last 10. And then the Blue Jays are 7-3. So I want to kind of really keep an eye on the American League East as we move through the month of May and see if we can't get a little bit of separation. But it is kind of funny, man. I mean, like you said, Toronto 22-17, Yankees 22-18, Tampa Bay 23-19, little tiny ticky-tack percentage points separating them all from a team that I know we had the conversation off air. We probably didn't talk about it on the podcast, but we were laughingly saying before the season, Vasu, Boston could be a basement team again, or they could just win the division, because that just seems to be the way that the Red Sox franchise kind of works, man. I mean, year to year, they're either really good or really bad. Now, this year, they're doing it in a much more impressive fashion with that plus 45 run differential. But I'm not sure I'm 100% buying them. As you said, luckily, we're sitting here on May 17th, so it doesn't really matter what we think right now. Let's wait till we get a little bit closer to the fall.
It's May 17th, people. It's May 17th. Calm down. 10-game winning streak away from doing well, and a 10-game losing streak from going the other way as well, too. All right, the American League West, Houston Astros starting to play a lot better now. The A's had a pretty good weekend in Minnesota. They obviously had a good week in Boston as well, too. They come home to face Houston tomorrow. It's going to be a big series, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Actually, I don't know. You have to check the schedule. If one of them is a day game, I might hit it. But Oakland and Houston are going to play. Seattle still playing up there. They're still above 500, 21-20. They get the Tigers this week, so it's a chance for them. And then we've already talked about the Angels struggling. They lost the first 2 games to Boston, and if it wasn't for Ohtani hitting the 2-run home run in the 9th inning, it would have been a sweep in Boston and my profit statement, but that's a separate issue. But Ohtani hitting the home run, how about 12 home runs for Shohei Ohtani and an ERA around 2.10? Babe Ruth-like numbers, as we said before. What a talent. And by the way, if you think that he's doing all that hitting and pitching-wise, if you've never seen him run, he is unbelievably fast. I forgot how fast he was because he's caused errors and he beats out infield hits, and he's 6'5" and 220. He's not exactly a small guy, but he can do it all. And you want to talk about all-around players, and I know they've got Mike Trout there and all that, but I don't think Mike Trout can pitch. No offense to Mike Trout, but I don't think he pitched. And Ohtani, a big reason why the Angels, even though they're struggling, a big reason for the fan base to be excited about Shohei Ohtani. Well, what's your take on the West here? Oakland's playing well. They've got bullpen issues, though, Casey. I mean, Saturday, Jake Diekman, 2 home runs allowed. Saturday, the game winner to Sano, we knocked a little bit, 115 coming into the weekend. Again, profit loss statement on the A's on Saturday, but should have won that game. And then yesterday, Diekman gives up the game-tying home run in the 8th inning as well, too. And the A's were lucky to get out of it, 7-6. They've got bullpen issues. I mean, Trevino, Romo, Rosenthal obviously out since the beginning of the year. It's been kind of a mishmash for Bob Melvin, who's a great manager. He knows how to manage bullpens, and they've got guys who throw hard, and they've got guys who have good control. But right now, the bullpen's struggling for the Oakland A's, and that's going to be a difference when they face teams like the Houston Astros, especially in the late innings with those bats that they have.
Well, and the Houston Astros are just destroying the ball. I mean, the entire division except for Houston has the negative run differential. The Astros are plus 56 just behind the Boston Red Sox. So they certainly are a potent offense. And let's not forget, they did have that COVID issue that maybe affected the start of the season for them, because right now they're 8-2 in their last 10, and they're playing very well. And I'm very excited for that series. By the way, to answer your earlier question, Thursday is a day game, 12:37, to conclude the 3-game series with the A's and Astros. So it's going to be a really fun week. And I think that you kind of laid out the bullpen issues there. One thing that you might want to look at as A's fan, if you are an A's fan or just a gambler, AJ Puck could potentially be coming up in the near future. Right now he's on the 10-day injured list, and he's been injured his whole career. But maybe you slot him somewhere in the bullpen early on while you try and figure out what else you're going to do. We know this team is very stingy, let's say, when it comes to spending money. So the chances that they go out and buy a big-time reliever to try and figure out this closer issue, they're not good. They're not going to do that. So they're either going to say, look, Trevino or Diekman's going to take it. Maybe we can work in Puck, try and get him in there in that role, because the thing that you got to like about what the A's are doing, 4-2 on that road trip, picking up the victory after trailing yesterday. Chris Bassett said it in the postgame. He's like, look, this game defines who we are as a team. This is Oakland A's baseball. We can get in a hole early. We have confidence in our bats late. He kind of calmed down a little bit. I know he gave up 4 runs, but he kind of righted the ship a little bit. They pitched with confidence late, and then, of course, they got the fluky Josh Donaldson error, and all that stuff went in their favor. in the ninth inning. Sometimes you got to catch breaks like that. As far as the Angels, they're going to be the franchise that holds the all-time record for MVPs on losing teams. That's the bottom. That's what they're known as. It's Mike Trout will win the MVP, Ohtani will win the MVP, and they won't even sniff the playoffs because they just don't play consistent baseball. 8-9 at home, 9-13 away. Let's see. As far as runs scored, 173, 220 though allowed, a -47 run differential. That's
their
horrid,
pitching,
and that speaks for their pitching. So I don't expect to see a lot of movement out of them. I think the Mariners are a team we should probably keep an eye on a little bit because they're one game over 500. If you've seen them play, they've got a pretty good roster as far as the ability to put the ball in play. But they're also that team that seems to play well in stretches every year and then goes on and loses like 16 out of 20 and completely tanks out of the spot. So the West right now, it's Oakland, it's Houston. I think we all thought that heading into the season it was going to be Oakland and Houston. And as we say, once again, I think for the third time on this show, it's May 17th. There's plenty of time for things to change.
Yep. Casey Freelove, Vasu, Vaddiparty. Thanks to David Andrews, Jennifer, Robbie on Facebook, and also the YouTube pages. We appreciate it as well, too. Let's hit the American League games here, Casey, and then we'll get to the National League in a second. Minnesota slight favorite over the red-hot White Sox, who are kind of separating themselves away in the division. Minnesota, terrible defense that was shown yesterday. You mentioned Josh Donaldson, but they've been throwing the ball all over the place, and their bullpen hasn't been very good either. Dallas Keuchel, by the way, congratulations, Kelly Nash, very attractive girl on MLB Network, Dallas Keuchel's fiance. I check that stuff out too. When you're doing a show, you gotta be observant on everything. So Dallas Keuchel, plus 100, officially plus 100, minus 101, 9.5. Garrett Cole, the Yankees playing better. They're at Texas. Don't sleep on the Rangers. Minus 260, a lot on the road. Garrett Cole, the best pitcher. Jordan Lyles there as well too, the former Astro, probably plus 220. The Angels, we talked about the Angels. They're favored against the Indians, who are pretty good. And this is Patrick Sandoval, who's not a named starter, and he's had some struggles. And left-hander Henkes, the Angels do rip up on left-handed pitching. And so that may be the reason they may be at 149, the total tonight in Anaheim. And then you say Kikuchi, I say Kikuchi. We say Kikuchi. It's 175 versus Detroit. Casey Mize, their number one draft pick a few years ago, 7.5. The total, the cool air is still going in Seattle. Seattle's offense coming to life a little bit. Detroit, they seem like they've got players on there, and then all of a sudden you look at their run differential. It's like minus 63 last time I checked. They get a win here, a win there. Like the White Sox, the Royals run an 11-game losing streak, and then they went 2 out of 3 in Chicago over the weekend to beat the White Sox. But I kind of think that division, as you look at the games, Casey, what do you think about the games? And it looks like the White Sox are starting to separate themselves a little bit in the
American. And I think I'm gonna get a little cash in on the White Sox to at least win the American League. I think I'm liking this team more and more the more that I see them play. They're just so stout. I mean, such a tough team to deal with from top to bottom, and a huge run differential. I don't have it in front of me, but they are killing
63.
Yeah. So that kind of says it all. They've got good frontline pitching as well. And one thing I noticed, I know we're talking AL, but just as a theme today on a Monday, a lot of low totals. I mean, there's only one total or two totals that are over 8. And I see very low totals here in LA with the Dodgers and Diamondbacks. Even the Mariners and Tigers are at 7.5. And then you mentioned the Yankees and the Rangers, that total at 8. I'm real leery, Vasu, of laying $260 to win $100. That's the kind of thing you got to look at the run line if you're going to play games like that, because I just don't think there's any value. You can literally put yourself down 2.5 units with just a single loss, and that's never a good way for long-term betting strategy. If you're curious, by the way, the Yankees on the run line, you can buy that at $1.65, which sounds a lot better than $2.60. You just got to hope that they're able to score. And as far as Henkes and Sandoval, we've been talking about the Angels. The Indians are another team that was playing really well, now scuffling a little bit, but maybe this is Sandoval's time to shine. I mean, the guy's got a 6 ERA, so it could probably only get better for him.
No doubt about it. Let's move on to more notes in the National League. Mets get swept by the Rays over the weekend. Their lead is 4 games in the loss column, but only a half game up on the Phillies, who have 21 wins. St. Louis gets swept by San Diego. They still lead by 2 in the Central. Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Chicago, all within 3 games. San Francisco and their bullpen, they should have taken 3 out of 4, probably swept the series against the Pirates this weekend. Instead, they take 2 out of 2. They've got bullpen issues right now, and hopefully they're not being overused, because that's been Kapler's trend in Philadelphia. This year, he's letting the starters go a little bit more. We talked about the San Diego sweep. Dodgers got a tough loss yesterday against the Marlins, but they took 2 out of 3, and they're staying in the race. They've got Arizona this week to try and get healthy. Both Kershaw and Bauer are going to pitch against the Diamondbacks this week, and probably will not be in San Francisco for that weekend. So it's going to be pretty tough as we put the National League games up here. A lot of National League games tonight. Cincinnati favored over the Giants tonight, even with the bullpen. I'm leaning towards the Giants right now. Atlanta had a tough series with Milwaukee, 154 with Max Fried against Taijuan Walker. The Chicago Cubs, 147 favored over old friend John Lester, Azalea, the pitcher for the Cubs. Cubs offense has been better lately. Washington came off a 2 out of 3 in Arizona over the weekend. And John Lester, you just don't know what you're going to get with John Lester, but I still think he's good enough. And in Chicago, it might be familiar, where an underdog play on him might be really good. The Dodgers, 210 with Walker Buehler. When has Madison Bumgarner ever near a $2 underdog now? The last couple of years kind of proven that, but he's pitched better the last few years. The total on that game, 7. And then Yu Darvish, here's the low total of the day. Yu Darvish, 6.5 against John Gray, who pitched well against the Giants last week. Also a $2.10 favorite over the Rockies, Casey. But the Rockies just took 2 out of 3 from the Giants. And then they had Cincinnati over the weekend where they crushed Cincinnati pitching. And Yu Darvish and the Padres just swept the Cardinals over the weekend as well, too, which was not easy because they were down in every game going into the game. And they come back with victories on a pretty good St. Louis team, Casey.
Yeah, then the Rockies are just the worst team like in recent history as far as away record. I mean, clearly it's Coors, they win. It's away, they lose. They're 2-14 on the road. I mean, that is almost impossible to even fathom. John Gray has been one bright spot. He's 4-3 on the year. And you, of course, has that nice low 2.08 ERA. So I think the Padres are probably the play if you're looking at that one. I'm very excited about Dodgers D-backs tonight. I know we're going to get to picks here in a minute, and I've got a play on that one. Walker Buehler. What can you say? The young man is outstanding, and he goes deep. And as far as I know, the Dodgers haven't done as well against lefties this year as you might expect. Nats, Cubs, I'm staying away from that one. No thoughts there. Mets, Braves. I mean, I like Max Fried, but that's 6.5 ERAs. Certainly not the greatest thing that I've seen. And then along with you, I like the Giants maybe as a little bit of an underdog here. Sonny Gray's 0-2. Now, I know a lot of that's because he hasn't had a lot of help on offense. But the Giants are going to consistently make you money. If you've been betting on them all year, you're definitely in the plus. And I don't know if there's a reason why they're such a big dog, but don't forget last Monday, underdogs did very well. I think they might have even swept the board. I think there were 6 games and they went 6-0. So Vegas knows there's no basketball tonight. They know you're going to be betting baseball. And so you got to be a little bit careful there.
All right, one quick hockey note before we get to picks here. Talk about the 8 opening series for the NHL, and I know Casey's got the Vegas Knights. They had an overtime game. The Washington Capitals have an overtime game on Saturday. I won the under 2-2 going in. Washington up 1-0 in their series. Carolina and Nashville will go tonight. They're 165, and then Colorado led 320 to St. Louis. Colorado won 5 in a row to take Vegas, to take the President's Cup away from them. And then in the overall, if you take the Grand Salami, the home teams are minus 190. The over/under on the Grand Salami 16.5. I like the under in the Washington Capitals, and I like the Carolina Panthers at Carolina Hurricane at minus 165 tonight. We'll get to the picks. We'll start with Casey's picks right now as we wrap up the show. Go, Casey.
Yeah, Diamondbacks and Dodgers. I'm going to take the under 7 just because I think LA has struggled a little bit against left-handers. Bumgarner's pitched much better than he did earlier in the year, and Walker Buehler's going to do what Walker Buehler does. So under 7 there. And since we're not on tomorrow, we'll put this on the social media tomorrow, but I will take the under. The playoffs start tomorrow, and the unders begin tomorrow in the NBA. Take one of the highest totals on the board, Celtics Wizards, under 232.5. And by the way, get on that one today because it's already gone down from 234 to 232.5. Don't be surprised if that moves a little bit more.
Check out social media. Somebody please tell me who's going to play defense in the NBA this year after watching the bubble and the 72 games this year. All right, as we wrap up my picks, I said I'm going to get to 53 picks this week. Here they are right here. Giants plus 121. The Chicago White Sox with Dallas Keuchel plus 100. The Washington Nationals plus 137 with old friend John Lester going up against the Cubs. And I agree with you on Max Fried. The New York Mets going to break their 3-game losing streak from Tampa, plus 146 with Taijuan Walker, who's had a pretty good year. Both the 210 favorites in California, the Padres and the Dodgers. And then Kikuchi minus 175 over a Tigers offense that's horrible. Casey Mize has pitched well for them, but I still think Seattle at 21-20, they might have one more move left in them in terms of the American League West. And in hockey, Washington Capitals and the Boston Bruins under 5.5 as that game went under on Saturday. Better defense and better goaltending. And then the Carolina Hurricanes minus 165. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. So 5 more days to get to 53 picks. For 9 games we go. All right, 20 seconds left. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live. Thanks to everybody on YouTube. Catch us Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific. And then you can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. For Casey Freelove, Charlie Owen, and Simon, I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. Have a great afternoon. See you later, everybody.